Welcome to the Final Score Network and the Final Score Podcast, presented by Team Anders Realtors. I'm Andy. He's former NCAA student athlete and co-host.
Ryan, Cam, two-hand monster flush off the inbound. Ryan, Cam, slam, jam. Oh boy.
Find the TFS pod and our playlists wherever you stream your podcast or music. Follow us on X at TheFinalScore35. Oh, and one more note before we get started.
I'd like to apologize to anyone I've not offended yet. Please be patient. I'll get to you shortly.
Welcome into the 214th edition of the TFS pod. We're actually doing this in a different location today due to unforeseen circumstances. We're in my room. Never done it here before. I think it's the fifth different place we've done it. Funny. Last pod of February. It's almost March, less than 48 hours away. That is just music to my ears. I know it is to yours too. Got a lot to talk about, lots of college hoops. We got the NFL Combine this week. Free agency starts soon. Pistons are on an 8-game winning streak, longest in over a decade now. That's crazy. The Red Wings are playing good hockey. Tigers are starting spring training. Lots going on in the sports world, and I'm going to sit at the podium and talk about something I've talked about before, but another guy said, Eric Musselman, coach of USC basketball. Just more commentary about frustrations over the Big Ten and its road schedule. Basically, I'll give you the synopsis. So he talks about how it's been a struggle for his team with all the travel they've had to do. And just being a West Coast team, traveling back and forth from the East Coast, Central Time Zone, Midwest, all that stuff. I don't blame them. It's tough. They got put in a weird situation because of money, of course. He's like, we're getting back at 3 a.m, and then we got practice, and then we got to start. And the kids got class. I hardly doubt they really go to class, but he goes on to say that. That USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington basically have 3 or 4 losses built in automatically because of their schedule, and I would agree with that. I mean, it is tough, but it's also tough for East Coast and Midwest, Eastern Time Zone schools to go 3 time zones the other way too. So at least it's only twice usually, or for 2 games once. I don't think a team's done both the North and the LA swing. I wonder if they'll eventually ingrain that or that'll just stay that way. It'll be interesting. But just another example of college athletics being ruled by money, and it should be geographical. Oh, who would have thought? We never could have foreseen this happening. Freaking ridiculous. And people are going to keep complaining. I'm surprised Altman hasn't said anything. We already had Cronin say it. I'm sure they think it. So ridiculous. But you know what? We got to survive it.
Yep, going to survive it for a couple more years because we're going to have 2 mega conferences, and then we're going to have divisions that are, shocker, regional. All right, mine, I got to go a little in memory of Gene Hackman. Why, for my podium, obviously, usually I kind of commentate on things that are bothering me or I have a very strong opinion on. This is still an opinion piece, but it's, a little bit of a bittersweet opinion given Gene Hackman, 95 years old, by the way, and according to his daughter, still in good health. A little suspicious there. And his wife found dead just yesterday, I think it was. Anyway, so for my podium, I decided as a tribute why Hoosiers is the best sports movie ever and why sports movies are the greatest genre of all time. So I can't even begin to list all the sports movies and that Hoosiers would be up against, but I've seen pretty much all of them. Okay, you get into like cycling and some of that stuff I haven't seen, but you get into Ford versus Ferrari, you could consider a sports movie. You've got movies up and down the spectrum. For my money, I remember when it came out in 1986, I was 12 years old, not quite 13, and I went and saw it in the theater in Canton, Michigan. I have probably, no lie, watched it front to back at least 250, probably closer to 500 times. And I will pick it up midstream when it's on. It hasn't been on streaming as much lately, but when it's on, I'll pick it up at any given time. Know the lines, know the movie. And how I know it's the best sports movie ever is I still get teary at the end of the game when they win it, when Jimmy Chitwood hits that shot. Yes, it was based on a true story. Yeah, of course, Hollywood took a lot of liberties with it, but I think also it's near and dear to my heart because I grew up in kindergarten through 5th grade in Indiana in some of those formative years, late 70s, early 80s. I saw Michigan State beat Indiana State. That was my first memory of a national championship. Indiana obviously won one. I was kind of a de facto Hoosiers fan, aside from being a Michigan State fan. Big Steve Elliford guy. Watched Scott Skiles when I was a kid. Loved him. But Hoosiers just encapsulates like that basketball story. And it's a real place, right? You can go to the gym. You can go to Milan, Indiana, first of all. You can go to the gym. It's just outside of Muncie, I think, where they filmed it. And just for my money, like the story, okay, yeah, they Hollywoodized it a little bit, and it's famous for having some of those, what do they call, like I'll call them movie goofs, where you're like, oh wait, the score was just this, and then they fast forwarded and the score was this with a different time, and things like that. You know, 2 guys left the team early and there were only 5, but in the passing drill there were 6 and another guy on the bench. Like, oh, I can look past that stuff. Just the storyline. The whole thing about this old embattled coach coming to a small, hick town, the storyline of all the characters, Shooter, Flatch, whatever. For my money, it's the greatest sports movie ever. And for the record, other movies that I think are incredible: Greatest Game Ever Played, Rudy, Remember the Titans, probably the best football movie I think. Miracle is probably the second best sports movie all time. Moneyball, Trouble with the Curve, the Rocky series. I mean, I could go on, and that's what makes sports movies the greatest genre, especially the ones that have some bent of reality to them, like Remember the Titans. Rudy obviously had a little bit, way more license probably than some of these, but just like Greatest Game Ever Played, like there's just a reality to that you can vouch for, right? You can experience yourself, unlike any other movie genre. And I didn't include in my list of all-time favorites things like Major League or Sandlot or Caddyshack or Happy Gilmore or another Gene Hackman great one, The Replacements, an underrated Gene Hackman movie. Those are kind of like sports comedies, I guess, if you will, or Little Giants and some movies like that. They kind of are right up there in my purview. But you'd be hard pressed to convince me that there is a better sports movie out there than Hoosiers. Maybe Miracle, just because obviously that was based on a true story. That's something very unlikely as well. But R.I.P. Gene Hackman. Hoosiers is the best. Sports movies are the best. I don't think we'll ever see another one like that one.
Agreed. All right, let's get to Tee Up this week. I know you've got it. Make it quick on this one.
Yeah, Tee Up, geez, like what podcast goes by where this isn't in the news? So today I just happened to see this on Fox. A 15-year-old girl in Washington doing an interview, and so it caught my attention because I saw she was in a basketball uniform or something like that. And she decided of her own volition to sit out her varsity team's last game of the season because the other team had an 18-year-old boy. And the coach and the girl asked over and over and over again, is that a boy? And got threatened with you're bullying and we don't discriminate based on sex and whatever. She's like, if that's a biological male, I refuse to play. So I give her credit for standing on her principles, standing on her morals, standing up for what's right, which is women and women's rights. And not the school supported her, but the Washington Athletic Association or whatever it's called, the WIAA, I think it is, came back and said that this is her warning. If she does something like this again, basically they're going to sue her. They're going to kick her out of sports. She'll never be eligible to play again. And I have to sit here and ask, WTAF. So the party that says they're for women continues to say that somebody can say they're a female and therefore play a sport with women. When is the madness going to end? These states, a few, Maine, Washington, California, are ignoring Trump's ruling. The NCAA has basically worded it so loosely that anybody could just go get their birth certificate changed, which is like, I could just write down my birth basically on a piece of paper. That's how illegitimate that is as a form of ID. It's laughable and it's ridiculous that we still have to have this conversation in a world where women fought so hard for rights from the 50s, 60s, 70s on, and now we're putting men ahead of women just because they want to pretend that they want to be women, and we feel sorry we might hurt their feelings. I am beyond disgusted and tired about this. Do right by these young girls and these young women and grown women and knock the shit off.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. All right, let's get to Around the World. And Around the World, Spot 1 is presented by Norris Sports Group. NSG is a boutique agency of experts with 30-plus years experience in sports sponsorship and much more. Learn more about them today at norrissportsgroup.com. We get to the wide world of golf. Right now, we have the Cognizant down at PGA National.
Formerly the Honda, right?
Yep. The Bear Trap, really cool course, usually really tough. Let me know that we both picked the same guy. We'll just get to that really quick, and then we can talk for a second about the Mexico. We didn't really watch that, but we both picked Daniel Berger. We called it this morning, and he went on shot 8 under. Good job to Daniel. It wasn't good enough because Jake Knapp shot a 59 today, 12 under par. It was an absolute heater, and this is a really hard golf course. One of the tougher ones on tour, and the average today was 66.7.
That's crazy. Spieth's up there, shot 6 under. Ricky's up there, shot 7 under.
Russell Henley, some good names.
Yep, good little leaderboard.
Looking forward to the weekend of watching it, because it just always, I feel like there's always a playoff or close to a playoff in this tournament.
How did we do with our Mexico picks?
Patrick Rogers 25th for me, and then Ben Griffin 4th for you. So you're on a bit of a heater the last couple of weeks, first and fourth.
First and fourth, yeah. And I mean, here's the one thing that you do need to talk about. So the guy who won it, Journeyman, 31 years old, I think, never even won on the Corn Ferry Tour. Yeah. Playoff hole, like forces a playoff, and then on the playoff hole, absolutely slices his shot. OB, quote, but it miraculously hits a tree on a par 5 and saved, and then he sticks his third shot, and he like makes a 4-footer or less for birdie to win it. Pretty remarkable. You know, and I was thinking about it this weekend too. Like, sure, none of the real big names. Joel Damon was up there too, which was great because I love him and I like to see him succeed and do well. But you know, no big names, which is no surprise coming off that West Coast swing and a couple of elevated events. But you know, it's fun to see these guys who then therefore have a chance, because it's still damn hard to win a golf tournament. See these guys get a chance to actually get a win and get a life-changing moment. Yes, we know guys can make a lot of money finishing top 10s. There's a couple guys like that on the tour that have made plenty of a living doing that.
Winning.
But there's something about a win, you know, what it means in terms of your 3 years of, you know, no questions asked, you're on the tour, ticket to the majors and all that kind of stuff. So hats off to Campbell for that win. Pretty cool. And not a bad-looking golf course either.
No, it's really pretty. And then the guy that was in the playoff with him, Aldrich Potgieter, I think that's how you say his name. He's a South African, really young, can hit the ball a mile. He kind of choked Sunday a little bit, first time really in contention. But he's got a bright future. Yeah, bright future. Not a ton of big names out there. Aaron Rye, Joel Dahman had a nice week. Also, Full Swings out. If you haven't watched it, we already watched 2 episodes. We'll probably watch more this weekend. Really good.
Yeah, the funny thing is it was pandas, you know,
they always
not necessarily great, whatever, but I got to remind myself never listen to the critics, because I find it super entertaining. I love that they talk to the guys. Chris, debatable. I don't know if you could be right, could be wrong. We'd love to prove it. You know, whether Nate Shipley's stuff was Neil Shipley. Nate Shipley. I think there was a Nate Shipley somewhere. Somebody.
There's a Will Shipley that plays football.
Maybe that's it. Anyway,
for the Eagles.
Neil, you know, like whether they kind of made it look like they interviewed him before the Masters, or if all that stuff was, you know, regardless, they did a really good job with it. But it would be interesting. That's an interesting take, Chris. It'd be interesting to know, was that like, oh shoot, this guy did really well and he's kind of a character. Let's go back and get some footage and make it look like it was before the Masters. I don't know. Because we'll find out, and as we remember, he actually did well in the U.S. Open too. So,
Yeah, sure did. All right, that is golf. Let's get to spot 2 in mailbag. We've got a lot of questions this week. You want to start with Mitch-a-palooza?
Yeah, I got 8 from Chris. One of them kind of relates into our March Madness, so I'll probably weigh down it a little bit. But so Chris's first question: would you rather hit 300 yards in 300-yard drives down the middle of the fairway, or never miss a putt inside 8 feet for the rest of your life?
Probably the fairway one, because I never hit the ball straight.
Fair. I don't hit it 300 yards. I tend to hit more fairways than I don't. But that's a good question, because obviously you still have to hit an approach shot, and I would argue my approach game is way worse than my driving game or my putting game. I'd probably say the 300 yards, just because then you're hitting, like when we played the Golds a couple times last year, the difference when you're hitting driver 9-iron or driver 8-iron instead of driver 5-iron, there is a big difference there. And I feel pretty confident with my putting, so I'll take the 300, the other 60 yards or so on each of my drives and right down the middle of the fairway. All right. Yep. Chris's next question is related to the Ken Pom stuff. I'll ask it, but we'll cover it a little bit more. His stats are, you're starting to see these, and they kind of come from all over the place. Obviously, I look at top 40 offense, top 22 defense. I throw out the top 12 in the 6th week AP poll or whatever. That's kind of an outlier. You can manufacture any statistic you want to kind of tell a story. So I go top 40 offense, top 22 defense on Ken Pom. Chris's question is, since 2001, 91% of national champs had a top 21 offense. 96 have had a top 31 Ken Pom defense. There are 9 teams that currently fit the bill. This was last week, and their odds to win it all. And he wanted us to break down if they really have a chance or not. They were, at the time, Auburn, Duke, which still exists, Maryland, which actually we'll get to in a minute, still exists, Illinois, which no longer is in that range, at least my range, Iowa State, which is, Florida, which is, Houston, which is, Clemson, which is not, and Michigan, which is by the skin of their teeth. We could probably talk about it a little bit more in the bracketology section, but I think Auburn has a legit chance to win it. I think Duke has a legit chance to win it. I don't think Maryland does. I don't think they have enough depth. Illinois was in at the time. They don't because they don't play as a team. I think Florida has a chance. I watched them the other day for the first time. They've got a good mix of size and guards and whatever. I've not watched them enough to really be educated on them, minus obviously playing in the tough SEC. I would say that they have a chance. Iowa State, I think, is an outlier. I don't know how tough the Big 12 is. Houston, I think, has a chance because defense travels and they play great defense. And this year, unlike a lot of years, they actually have a pretty explosive offense.
They can score.
And Michigan would be the only other team that still kind of fits that bill. I would say no. They don't have the guard play. They got the bigs are good, but their guards are not good enough to contend to win. And basketball is a guard game, and it's a defense game. And Michigan doesn't really – they do defense okay.
Well in months.
Yeah, they really haven't offensively. So Chris' question, I don't know. Well, maybe I have to pause this for the next one because I'm going to have to think about this. What is it saying for the golf course in the bedroom?
Oh, Lord.
Never up, never in. Prom date.
Yeah, I'm not answering that question.
Ryan doesn't want to answer that. I think there's probably plenty of innuendo there. Next question from Chris. Spartans are first in the Big Ten and will likely win it. I like that thinking. How do they compare to other top teams in top conferences? Could they beat Auburn, Tennessee, Duke, etc.?
I think they could. It's just you'd have to be able to shoot the ball, and that's a big what if for Michigan State. I think with their defense and their cohesiveness, I think they can beat anybody, to be honest with you. But they also could lose to anybody.
I do think that Michigan State has proven they can wear teams down. I think they wore down Maryland last night. I think they wore down Michigan. I think they wore down Purdue. I think teams that play like 7 deep, regardless, Michigan State's got a chance, but I think Ryan's right. I think Michigan State's got to shoot the ball better. Namely, Akins has got to shoot the ball better. I don't think anybody is a runaway. There's nobody that's going to stop them type of team. look, rarely that happens anyway, but like there's nobody that you look at and go 90% of America is going to pick that team. I think this may be one of the most crazy, like when you break it down on ESPN or CBS for the bracketology contest, like the percentage of people picking teams to win, aside from of course picking your own school and your own favorite team. Like last year it was pretty clear everybody was picking UConn. It was a huge percentage. I don't think that's going to happen this year.
Right.
Next one, lots of rumors of potential CFP expansion from 12 to 16 teams. Part of those rumors are the SEC would move to 9 conference games, and the SEC and Big Ten would play 1 crossover conference game every year. What are you and Ryan's thoughts on this proposed expansion? I'm okay with 16. I think 16 is the number. That's what they play with in D2. I think that's what they play with in D3. I don't think you need to go anywhere over 16. I love the idea of the SEC getting with the program and playing 9 conference games just like the Big Ten does. Honestly, I think it should be 10 conference games in the new scheme of things. I think let's hurry up and get to 2 mega conferences with smaller divisions. I've broken it down a million times on the pod. It's another repeat for another time that I can go back through it. But I'm for it. I think also playing a crossover game would be a great idea.
Yeah, fun.
And hey, Chris, maybe that crossover game is to set that schedule. You're looking at what the bowl game would have been. If we want to get down that road, you brought that up on the pod a while ago. Here's another one. I've seen this one on TikTok. Well, off the sports topic, would you rather date an illegal immigrant or a liberal?
Is there an option for?
I've loved watching some of there's a young girl's response that is classic. Like she just doesn't know what to say. I'm going to abstain and become a priest.
Yeah,
that's my answer. Would you rather play cart path only or on aerated greens for the rest of your life? For this question, walking is not an option. 100% cart path only. Yeah. I don't mind because you get a little bit of the walk in. That doesn't bother me at all. You know where your ball is and you just walk to it. Bring your clubs. I think that would speed up the pace of play too. Aerated greens are no joke and no fun. Last question from Mitch-a-palooza. Should the NBA consider adding the best college dunkers to the dunk contest?
They got to change something up, but I don't think you could do that in season, obviously. But who knows? I think that the NBA dunk contest is a joke. It's all a joke. So anything to honestly get it back to what it was.
Yeah, I mean, can we just reset and go back to the 80s? Pistons and the Celtics and the Sixers and the Lakers and the rise of the Bulls like that. Those were the good old days of basketball where basketball was truly basketball, and MJ and Dominique were in the dunk contest and nobody pussed out, and Larry Bird was in the three-point contest. Until you get back to those days when your best players are doing it and they're not opting out, and the NBA gets away from this I can shoot the ball from further away than you type of game, and 6 steps doesn't equal a travel, and all the stupid rules that they have. I think it's garbage basketball. It's not even basketball. It's like some semblance of it, and I think it's trash.
Agreed. Is it all Chris?
That's it for Chris.
All right, Mitch-a-palooza's back. All right, question number 1 from Mitch is: would you rather MSU win Big Ten regular season outright, win Big Ten tournament, but get bounced in March Madness second round, or State to share Big Ten regular season title, not make tournament championship, but lose in the Elite Eight?
Second.
Yeah, same.
March Madness matters more. Like here's my order of preference. Winning the regular season title means way more to me than the Big Ten title, because you can catch a heater and win the Big Ten title, Big Ten championship title, I would say. Is it great? Michigan State's got 6 of them? Sure. I mean, I like hanging any banner that we can get, but if I have to choose, I rank them in order of importance. Honestly, actually, national championship, like Final Four is first, Big Ten championship regular season second, Big Ten conference tournament third. But I would absolutely take a Big Ten share or otherwise outright title and an Elite Eight. I'd be fine with that.
Same.
That's a successful season.
Number 2, grade TGL out of 10. I'm going to go 8.5. It has its quirks, but overall it's a great product. To be honest, I haven't watched really any of it since the second week.
I read good things about it. I got to give
Yeah.
it an incomplete. I mean, I think Ryan and I have talked about this. We've been at the sim the last few weekends. I mean, I think the theory is good. I think it's a honestly, simulators are a better way to grow the game. Maybe it doesn't teach people actual on-course habits that they need to have, but I think
Right.
it's a good way to
It's a
grow
good
the
start.
game without slowing people who know how to play on a real course down. So if that's how you're going to grow the game and appeal to the game, I've got no problems with it. I don't dislike it. I'm like with Ryan. I just haven't
Yeah,
seen enough.
I incomplete.
It hasn't drawn me enough to go, ooh, I got to watch that. Like, it's basketball season. I'm watching hoops. I'm just, that's how it goes.
Nope, I would agree with that. Third and final, who would you rather have come off the bench for his MSU team, Matt Costello or Bryn Forbes? Because Michigan State, if they had one shooter that was a knockdown deadeye, they would be, you could argue, the best team in the country.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely what's been missing from Michigan State, because they've gotten back to their roots of defense. They've gotten back to their roots of rebounding. Offensive rebounding was why they won last night and overcame the major discrepancy at the free throw line. It's how they overcame a horrible shooting night, another horrible shooting night. Bryn Forbes all day, every day. And I loved Matt Costello, but I got to tell you, I usually have, Ryan knows, I've got a white big man whipping boy from Michigan State every year. And even I am not even as tough on Cooper anymore, because he really truly does play good defense.
Yeah,
and he does some boneheaded things once in a while, like he got bricks for hands sometimes. But the three-headed monster of Kohler, Zapawa, and Cooper are putting up really solid numbers across the board and playing good defense. And last night was no different. So I've got to go with Forbes, though. This team desperately lacks somebody like him or Chris Hill prime, or better yet, when I was there, Sean Respert, guys that
Even
were
a Matt
just dead
McQuaid.
on money from three. Yeah, I mean, the thing is Michigan State, I don't doubt Izzo. They got the guys that can do it, but they clearly aren't doing it, except for Richardson, which I know we'll get to Michigan State. But the fact that guy could be a 50-40-90 club is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
He's got
as
some
a freshman. He's special.
Stuff to get up to his numbers to get up a little.
Yeah,
bit.
on the free throw line.
3-point line.
He's close to 40, I think. Free
He's
throw.
38. He's gone
Yeah,
down.
not bad.
He's gone down about 5%.
Mid
More
80s on
volume.
free throw. Yep.
That is it for Mitch, and that will bring us to our third spot. And a word from our presenting sponsor. Team Anders Realty will help you find the home that fits your wants and needs, and they make the process simple and fun along the way. The Anders have served thousands of clients for 30 plus years in the West Michigan area, and are here to serve you today. Learn more at teamandersrealty.com. Here we go, back to college hoops, and we can just talk about the Big Ten a little bit. In general, since we last spoke was Wednesday. A lot has happened. We'll save Michigan State fodder for our fourth spot. Still think Maryland is a very solid team. We said we think they can't win the national championship. I think they can make some noise in the tournament, though.
Mm-hmm.
Playing good ball, they can shoot it. Didn't shoot well yesterday, but they
one of their best defensive
they chuck
performances of the year.
Queen's really good. I do not believe the Julian Reese hype. I think he's overrated hack.
Just like his sister.
Yeah, not good. Northwestern is a team that's playing a little better right now. I wouldn't want to play them in the Big Ten tournament. Hopefully they'll make it there. I like Collins. Martinelli has had a special season. They're doing without Barnheiser, arguably their most important player. But good for Northwestern, trying to stick it out here. Minnesota, ever since I talked good about them last week, they've not played well. Lost a couple. Penn State's starting to play a little better. Not going to make the Big Ten tournament, probably most likely. Same with Washington. They're kind of cellar dwellers. Ohio State, inexcusable loss at home last Thursday to Northwestern. Scored 49 points, lost by 21. They're squarely on the bubble. Talk about them in bracketology a little more when it comes to that. But they got bounced back last night against USC. They needed it. They needed it bad. Lost to UCLA on Sunday. Obviously, Illinois, a team that has really struggled. They lost a few in a row. Got absolutely pummeled by Duke by 43 points. Duke's really good, obviously, but 43 points, man. I mean, that is wow. And then Oregon goes to Wisconsin and wins. Wisconsin still get a little bit. They have to win out and hope some stuff happens for them to at least share the Big Ten title. But they still have a glimmer of chance. Really a three-horse race now. Michigan State Purdue. I'm sorry, not Purdue. Michigan State, Wisconsin. I'm so used to saying Purdue because they've been up there for so long. And Purdue has really hit the skids. They play UCLA tomorrow. That's a huge game for them to honestly hold serve and get a top 5 seed in this tournament coming up. Iowa, I'm seeing more and more about the Fran retirement possibly incoming. Would not surprise me at all. I don't know what they would do for a coach, but hopefully someone that doesn't have a horrible temper. That would probably be nice. That's really it in the Big Ten. College basketball at large, Auburn, obviously really good. Duke, really, really good. The bubble is interesting. I can touch on that a little more later. Florida lost one the other night. Bama's gotten right the last few games after a little losing
Was
streak.
23 for 45 from 3 the other night.
I mean, that's 45 threes is, I mean, that's
111
an NBA
points.
game.
You're not going to beat that.
No.
You're just
They're
not
shooting
gonna
that well, and you have no chance of winning
50% with that many threes. I mean, they abide by the 3 or layup rule, and I've watched them, and sometimes it's feast or famine for them. They get in a dogfight when they're not shooting very well from 3 and teams are clogging up the lane, and they don't have that mid-range game. That's when they start to, that theory goes out the window. But interesting to watch. What'll be interesting too in the Big Ten is I'm sitting here looking at the standings. So why I don't understand why the Big Ten has always had 14 teams, right, in the conference tournament.
Yeah,
and
I don't
now it's going to be 15.
Yeah,
I don't know how that's going to work.
I don't get it.
But why not boot 4 out? But here's the thing: is you got Washington at 4-13, Penn State at 5-13, tough loss at Indiana last night. Iowa, USC, Minnesota, Northwestern, all 6-11, vying for, to get in. Like 3 of those teams are going to get in at this rate, and then Nebraska, Rutgers are 7-10, and could use another win to kind of bolster make it into the Big Ten tournament resume. But I don't understand that. I've not seen the brackets, I guess, to know how it's going to draw out, but it'll be super interesting to see how it plays out. By the way, Michigan State still has to play Wisconsin at home, at Iowa, which can be difficult.
Senior day for Iowa.
And then Michigan at home. So you're playing 2 of the top 3 teams in the Big Ten. No surprise, we've already played Purdue, Maryland, Illinois lately too, and Michigan. Wisconsin they don't play until they play Michigan State. So we get them on a break. We get Iowa after a long break, which I would argue, although at this time of the year, I'm particularly not a fan. It's kind of like the Lions effect. Yes, there's benefits to getting the rest, but at this point in time, I'd much rather keep the momentum of playing. But Wisconsin has Michigan State, Minnesota, and Penn State left. So Wisconsin has the easiest road. Michigan's playing right now. They have Rutgers, Illinois, Maryland all at home, and then at Michigan State. So they still have some tough games ahead of them. It'll be really interesting down the stretch here. That's for sure.
Sure will.
Wisconsin can't afford any trip up.
Any trip up, they're done.
And they're going to have to beat Michigan State on the road, I think, in order to truly have a chance, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And Michigan, to be honest, I think they're the luckiest team in the Big Ten. I think they are.
We're up a touchdown, 14-7.
Yep, I have it on my phone right now. Their offense has kind of gone a little AWOL. Their defense isn't consistent. They're a really bad rebounding team. They turn the ball over a ton, and they don't have a ton of guard depth. Like Wolf and Golden, really good players. Burnett, nice player. The rest of them, I don't know. I don't believe it. We'll see what happens, though. They got a few left. Like you said, Illinois, Maryland, Michigan State, those are tough. They're playing Rutgers right now. So we'll see. Hopefully Michigan State can get some help from these other teams and then beat them themselves and win it outright. That'd be pretty nice. But we will see what happens here in the next, that'd be 10 days? Crazy that there's only that much time left.
10 days.
Conference tournament starting this Sunday, actually, the A-Sun first round. That's going to be fun.
See, that's one that I would hate if I'm, those teams aren't
wait all that.
Those teams aren't going to win it. But I mean, they're like almost 2 weeks between games.
Oh yeah.
Which at this time of the year is like, just totally talk about get out of a rhythm after you go maybe on a heater to win a tournament if you're like the 3 or 4 or 5 seed type of thing. You just lose all your momentum. I'm not a fan of it. I know why they spread it out for TV, but I'm not a big fan of that.
Right. All right, let's get to spot 4, State of State. Since we last spoke, Michigan State picked up their second and third road win of in their last 4 games. Third and fourth win in a row. Went to Michigan last Friday. Didn't play great in the
jumped on them big, then got
in the first
jumped
half
on
for
huge.
a majority, and then Michigan State in the second half just lays the hammer down defensively. Had Michigan in a torture chamber. Scored the rock.
All 4 guards made plays.
Everyone made plays for Michigan State in this game, and it was a beautiful thing to go into Chrysler. People saying that's the best atmosphere they'd ever seen there. Michigan State handles business, wins by double digits, makes their free throws down the stretch for the most part. 2 second half turnovers. Michigan State's a second half team.
Coop was big down the stretch. I mean, in the last
rebound
4,
after rebound after rebound.
The last 4 games, 4 minutes in, it's something like, I don't even remember what it is. It's some ungodly low number of field goals and points that teams have scored in the last 4 minutes of games.
Yep.
I mean, even last night, Maryland didn't have a field goal in the last 4 minutes.
Michigan didn't score in the last 4 minutes, a minute from the field. Maryland didn't. Illinois didn't in the last 5. Michigan State's put on a clinic offensively, up to 6th. Defensively in KenPom, that's pretty crazy. Not the best offense, but it's getting the job done. And I think, Michigan State starts hitting shots. They're going to be a really tough out.
Because the shots are there. They're not. It's not.
They're not shooting bad
open
shots.
Open shots last night from free throw line area. Some open threes. They did make some, when they needed to. But they just got to get just marginally better. We're talking like, 2 or 3 more a game, and that's going to be the huge difference.
Right. But impressive. And then last night, just a slobber knocker, old school Big Ten. It was Wisconsin versus Michigan State in 2007.
Yeah.
Just a punch you in the jaw, slugfest, rock fight, whatever you want to call it. Michigan State first half just awful. Second half score 38 points, a little better, and then take the lead.
7-point lead with 2 minutes to go, and they let it kind of slip away.
Yeah, kind of some bad calls. I mean, Maryland shot 14 more free throws.
Not a fan of when they get down and they milk clock to the point where they get a bad shot. I'd much rather them take a good shot with 5 seconds left on the shot clock than a bad shot with no seconds left on the shot clock.
Yeah.
Very telling to me that the ball was in Jace Richardson's hands.
Oh, he's the guy.
At the end, I think that it has been determined that he's the guy.
Yep.
And I think the rest of the team is completely fine with that. The nice thing is he can find other guys, right? Like he can find other people to make big shots. In the vein of poorly officiated, first of all, brain dead play by Holloman to jump off his feet.
Yeah,
which
left his
that
feet.
and killing the dribbler are my 2 biggest bugaboos with Michigan State's guards. Did that inexcusable turnover. He had a clean swipe, tipped it off their guy. They called an anticipatory foul. Obviously, Maryland ends up tying the game at that point in time. Michigan State gets kind of a rushed look. Yep, Kohler biffed it, but I think, if he had awareness that he had a full another second, I think he makes that. But I think he rushed it because he knew shot clock was coming down. Cooper got absolutely hogtied on the rebound, which nobody's talking about. But if you don't believe me, go back and look at it and see how that went. Maryland, a lot of Maryland fans I saw were mad that Gillespie took that shot early. It was a good look. He was a little deep.
Yeah, when he wanted to take one more dribble and shoot a runner.
It was online, and here's the thing, I would argue back to is when you take it with I would much rather take a shot with 4 seconds back too, because you have a chance for a rebound. Now, that happened to be a long rebound. Kohler was in great position. He was ready for the ball to come off. Wisely, quickly got it to Holloman. And look, how often do you lose games on a more than half-court shot, let alone a half-court shot? Lots of games get decided at the buzzer. So few games. In fact, I can't recount a single game in my Michigan State fandom that they've ever won on what was more than a half-court shot. But we'll call it a half-court shot. Never. Have they won at the buzzer? Yeah, they beat Maryland at the buzzer in the tournament a couple years ago, like
2010.
Corey Lucius. They've won plenty of buzzer games. They've lost plenty of buzzer games. I don't remember Michigan State losing on a half-court shot at the buzzer, and I don't remember Michigan State until last night winning. I've seen half-court shots in games. Cassius Winston did it at Maryland a couple of years ago, but like Maryland fans more stunned, I get it, but to be mad at Gillespie for taking that shot, it was not a bad shot. Izzo would argue with me that it wasn't luck. It's a low percentage shot, so we won't say it's luck because they do practice it. I know that they do.
He made the last two games.
Polo said that dating back to when he played for Judd and Izzo, they always ended practice that way. We used to do that for freshman basketball. It's kind of a fun thing, but it's also just kind of one of those things. You try it. So
we got to practice it.
And the more you practice it, these guys, they're in the gym so much. It's not that big of a deal. Is it high percentage? No. It probably only goes in like 5% of the time. But, hey, that 5% worked for Michigan State. It's just...
Like Izzo said, Michigan State deserved that game. The way that they played, the way that they...
lockdown queen and...
Maryland is one of the best, if not... Them and Wisconsin are the two best offensive teams in the Big
83
Ten,
points a game. Yeah.
And they did a tough guard for Michigan State, really big physical wings, two bigs that have played really good basketball. Not much depth, like you said, but in Gillespie, he's shooting 40 plus from three, almost 15 points a game. That's the head. He's a really good player, and he's pretty long and athletic. And Michigan State helped. Under 60 points on the road against a team that scores that many points. They usually score 45 points in the first half, and they had 45 points with 3 minutes left.
Yeah.
That's a special effort.
28 points below their season average at home in a raucous arena. Dub, you sold us a bill of
crazy.
goods. You said the crowd wouldn't be big, and usually I will say not, but they showed up for that game for sure.
Yeah, it was one of their bigger games in a while, and Michigan State did what they had to do, and now 3 tough ones. Every game in the Big Ten's tough to finish, but control their own destiny.
Yep.
That's all you can ask
also, State of State hockey kind of took it on the chin last weekend. They gave up first place, 2 points behind Minnesota, going on the road to play Notre Dame this weekend. They're the bottom dwellers, I think, in the Big Ten. So you got to hope that you get both wins, get 6 points, and then you're going to need a little bit of help from the Penn State team that stole points from you last weekend because Minnesota goes to State College. Penn State's
playing hot. They're in a little heater.
Their goalie made 90 saves last weekend against Michigan State. So it wasn't for a lack of Michigan State effort. It was just they ran into a hot goaltender. So, the thing is there's the difference too. Not so much about winning the Big Ten to get the bye because one team gets a bye. The number one seed gets the bye for a weekend. It certainly didn't hurt Michigan State last weekend, but the home ice advantage is nice. It would be nice to play at Munn again instead of going to Minnesota, which is an Olympic rink. Yes, that's bigger, a little bit longer, a little bit wider. Michigan State's obviously going to get in the tournament, so now they're really playing for which number one seed they really probably get. But, they dropped from number 1 to number 3. They've, it's not come as easy the last 3 or 4 weeks, but the Big Ten is also really good. Michigan's good, Ohio State's good, Penn State's good. Minnesota's good. Wisconsin's decent. There's no really any true bad teams. So we'll see if the Spartan hockey team can clinch the Big Ten title this weekend for the second time in a row.
Yeah, that would be huge. I think that's it for State of State. Let's move on to spot 5, and that is bracketology. We're back with it after a few days off of it. I made a new bracket and some new spots here. How should we do it? Top 16 again, and then
do your top 16.
And then Big Ten teams where we see them. No surprise. My top 2 are the same: 1 Auburn, 2 Duke. I think they're both just really good. Bama, I got them as 3 right now. I'm sorry, I messed that up. I have Houston as 3. They are playing phenomenally. Then I have Bama 4, and then Florida 5, moving down after kind of a tougher week. And then I've got Tennessee 6, playing good basketball, up from a 4 seed, the number 1 4 seed, to the number 7 overall, 3rd overall 2 seed, the Michigan State Spartans, playing really well, hitting their stride at the right time. And I have Wisconsin 8th, the last 2 seed. I think that's subject to change here, obviously, with what happens in the next couple of weeks. St. John's, the number 1 3 seed, clinched at least a share of the Big East title for the first time in a long time. Good on them for Slick Rick. And Slick Rick's old club, Kentucky, have them 10th, Iowa State 11, Texas Tech 12, and then my 4 seeds, Arizona, A&M, Maryland. I've slid Michigan down to the 16th spot because I don't like their trend right now. And that's not just me being a homer. They're concerning since really
Scored 40
the calendar
points
turned
Maryland
to this
or
year.
Nebraska.
They've won games. They have their offense ranks outside the top 130 in their last 10 games. So not overly consistent. They were just up 10 recently against Rutgers, and now they're down 4. They've had like 5 turnovers in a row. That's the problem. Turnovers, bad not a good free throw shooting team, and they don't really rebound. Not great recipes.
I maintain it all the time. 2 guys can't beat
Yeah.
you. Smith and Kaufman and Wren couldn't beat Michigan State. Vlad and Danny couldn't beat Michigan State. Like the 2 big guys from Maryland couldn't beat Michigan State. Like your 2 guys can get their 30, 40, 50 total points. I'll take it because if nobody else is going to score, you're not going to win. And
Right.
that's what happens with Michigan is they just don't have enough consistency from their guards for sure.
And guard play is inconsistent. Big Ten seeds. I already said Michigan State, Wisconsin as 2s. Michigan, Maryland is 4. I have Purdue on the 5 line. I bumped them down. They have not played well lately at all. 4-game skid. I also have I have 2 actually 6 seeds. UCLA and Oregon. Oregon has trended up lately. They're playing better. They have a lot of quad 1 wins. They have size. They have length. Good guard play. Shellstead is going to make a shot or 2 in the NCAA tournament that are going to be clutch. 7 line. I don't have any Big Ten teams. Neither with the 8. I have Illinois as a 9 seed. I think that they'd be a very dangerous 9 seed.
I would
Wherever
want to
they
see
get
them as
is
a 1, yeah.
very dangerous.
Unless they get matched up against Duke again.
Yeah. I don't think they want to play them. Where else? 10, I don't have any. 11, I've got good old Indiana firmly in the tournament as an 11
their way
seed
in
here.
right now.
Big
Big win against Purdue. Good win
Couple
against
big
Penn
wins.
State last night.
They've played their way into this thing. Next, I've got Ohio State. I was a play in 11. I think they're right on the ball. I think I have Nebraska as one of the first 4 out. I think that they're right there. They could get in, but it's like there's some huge games. Ohio State plays Indiana still. Ohio State plays Nebraska still. A lot of interesting contests here down the stretch, and we will see what happens. I don't think anyone else from the Big Ten has a chance unless they win out. And teams, I just put free fall. I put Purdue. I put Illinois. Obviously, Illinois rebounded, beat Iowa the other night. UConn, this haven't been great. Kansas, playing a little better the last couple games against bad competition. Ole Miss, they're in a bit of a free fall, not playing great. Mississippi State, must be something in the water in Mississippi. Who else? I mean, Gonzaga, they're not playing great so far this year. Baylor, they're a bubble team, usually really consistently, top 5 or 6 seed the last few years. But the bubble, I think, is the weakest it's ever been. And by that, I mean, this is not, you have to put someone in.
And yet they want to expand it.
In like teams like Wake Forest, like they're considered a team that's, right on the cusp. They give up 85 points to Virginia, who scores about 50 a game and lose at home. You can't do that and make an NCAA tournament. You got teams like Ohio State biffing it away against Northwestern. I touched on that. Nebraska scoring 40 points and losing. They've lost 3 or 4 or whatever it is. Georgia, they got a huge win the other day against Florida, but they're right there. Oklahoma, Texas, like these teams are. Texas lost to South Carolina the other day, who is awful.
Probably the only bad team in the SEC.
Yeah, and it's crazy. It's a crazy bubble, one of the weakest we've ever seen. And it's going to be interesting to see who they put in because they got to put someone in. That's why, Michigan State wins one more game. If they go 1-3, if just say hypothetically, they are going to be at the very least probably a 3 seed because of how weak this is. You got to put teams have not trended well.
It's weak, but yet there's lots of teams that can win it.
Yeah.
And you can see that in the Ken Palm 4022 update this week. 13 teams still kind of fall in that category. Duke, number 2 offense, number 4 defense. Auburn, number 1 offense, number 12 defense. Houston, number 8 offense, number 3 defense. That's where they've come a long way. Usually they're on the outside, right around that 40th mark on offense. Their offense is markedly better. Florida, 4th offense, 8 defense. Tennessee, 25th offense, but number 1 defense. Michigan State slipped a little bit on offense to 26, but is up to 6th on defense, as Ryan said earlier. Arizona hanging in there, 17th on offense, 19th on defense. Iowa State, 23rd offense, 11th on defense. Maryland is in there, 20th on offense, 16th on defense. Last night's performance helped their defense. St. Mary's is still in there, 37th on offense, 10th on defense. Michigan barely fits the bill, 39th on offense, 17th on defense. But like Ryan said, Michigan is in a free fall on offense. They were a top 20 for a long time. Ole Miss, same, 36th offense, just barely hanging on defense, 21st. And then Marquette, 32nd on offense and barely hanging on 22nd defense. Who's some notable teams not in there that are in the KenPom top 10, 15? Bama, Texas Tech, even Gonzaga, Texas A&M, St. John's. The problem with them is they're number 2 on defense, but 72nd on offense. Louisville's close, 24th on offense, 26th on defense. Bama's offense is great. Their defense, not so much. Texas Tech, pretty close. 10th on offense, 27th on defense. Gonzaga, not quite as close. Texas A&M, very strong defensive team, not a very good offensive team. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that because that's probably where you're going to find your winner out of that group. And it'll pare down over the next couple of weeks of the regular season.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get to our sprint and finish this thing off like we always do. Is Jace Richardson having the best freshman season under Tom Izzo?
That's a good question. I got to think back over the years.
Think back to Miles Bridges.
Zach Randolph
had
a phenomenal freshman season.
Mateen, a Drew Neitzel, Kalen Lucas, Raymar Morgan on a bad team.
Denzel.
Now, he wasn't as good. Gary Harris, Brandon Dawson. I'd put him up there.
I think so. I think probably, honestly, if not the best statistically, I think the most impactful. Because as a freshman, he's one of the most efficient players in the country, and he's like I said, he's got the ball in his hands at the end of the game. It's not Akins, who's got stage fright all of a sudden or whatever. It's Richardson. He makes smart decisions. He's a good shooter. He can get to the rack. He can make the good pass. He can make a three. He can make his free throws. He's exactly what you want, and sadly, he may not be around next season, but hopefully we can at least get a second season out of him.
Yeah, I agree with that. Best current Big Ten basketball coach. I know this is an easy question, but
well, I mean, he's the GOAT. It's Izzo. I mean, what he's doing with this team, who was picked like 5th or so in the Big Ten preseason, lost a lot. Imagine if you still had like a Malik Hall on this team, or even the shooting prowess of a Joey Hauser, or trade the shooting prowess of like Tyson for one of the other guards that can't shoot as well. No Hogard, obviously. I just think Hummel kind of said it last night on the broadcast. Like somehow, some way, he's gotten guys in an era of I need to get my points, I need to get my stats, or I'm going to transfer. He's gotten them to buy in to old school Michigan State successful basketball blueprint, which is defense and rebounding, offensive rebounding, and just making clutch plays. And he's done it without anybody complaining. Trey Holloman gladly went to the bench for Jace when Jace stepped in when Fears was sick, and it has made all the difference for Michigan State.
Yep. Will the tush push be outlawed? And by that I mean the Packers are trying to have it outlawed. They put in a petition for a rule for that.
I mean, I could see it changed. I don't really necessarily have a problem if there's one guy behind shoving, but the idea of two or
the
three,
rugby
whatever,
scrum.
the rugby scrum, I get it. There's like what goes on the bottom of the pile and undercuts and all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't have a problem with being able to be pushed in by one guy, but 3 or 4, I mean, hey, credit to the Eagles. They've done it and they've done it well. It's kind of like if you haven't stopped me, that's your problem, not my problem. But I wouldn't be surprised if they make some change to it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think it'll be completely outlawed. In honor of we got to try this, a new Thin Mint Frosty. What's the best Frosty flavor?
Chocolate.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The strawberry one was pretty good too, though.
I never had a chance to try
It was
that.
pretty good. All right, that is the 214th in the last of the month of February. Next time we speak with you, it'll be one of the greatest months of the year in March. And there will be one and done basketball on the television. We appreciate you guys listening. Let us know if you have any questions you want us to answer in the coming weeks. But that's all we got.
And meantime, in honor of Gene Hackman and Coach Norman Dale, I've seen you guys can shoot, but there's more to the game than shooting. There's fundamentals and defense.